So I just watched President Trump's farewell speech, if you want to call it that, and something struck me. Notice how he never conceded once or even mentioned Biden's name. The closest he came to admitting that he would no longer be president was referring to the quote next administration, which could just as easily be a coded phrase for his own second term or administration. I may be biased in my views on this, because I want Trump to remain president, but there is more to it than that. We all know that this election was stolen, and that the deep state has been blocking efforts to look into the allegations. There is strong evidence that hostile foreign actors were also involved in facilitating the steal, and that Biden and senior Democrat and Republican figures alike have been compromised. This is both a crime against democracy as well as a national security threat in the strongest sense of the word. Trump's sacred duty as president is to uphold the Constitution and defend America from threats both domestic and foreign. Now it's time for Trump to fulfill his oath. The situation America finds itself in just now represents the gravest constitutional and security threat I believe the country has found itself in since the height of the Cold War or possibly ever. Trump is obliged to act to defend America from what we all know is going on, and he has a range of emergency powers at his disposal as well as control of the most powerful armed forces on Earth. 30,000 of whom are guarding Biden's supposed inauguration. Trump has a duty to act and the means to do so. He cannot be concerned with how it looks, what other countries think or how the media will spin it. He must uphold his oath to protect and defend America from this threat, plain and simple. Justify and show the proof later. Right now, though, is the time to act, before he no longer can. I've been following the developments ever since Election Day and have gotten my information and optimism from a host of conservative news networks, investigative journalists, independent blogs and YouTube channels, insiders with ties to President Trump, and thanks to the evidence exposed by Trump's legal team as well as citizen lawsuits. As more and more information has been coming out, the net has been tightening around the necks of those who perpetrated this fraud. What we also know is that Trump has had a plan all along and has been eliminating every standard legal path, whereupon he has been met with obstruction, cover-up, censorship and impeachment from the establishment, all of which is intended to shut him down and prevent opposition to Biden's win. I believe President Trump fully expected this, but was obliged to follow the legal route to demonstrate that he had tried everything before turning to more drastic actions. With the entire corrupt system thwarting him at every turn, Trump has now been backed into a corner where he has few options left, but still a legal and moral obligation to defend his nation in the face of foreign interference and a domestic threat to the Constitution. Under this pretext, I think Trump will invoke emergency powers at the final moment in order to fulfill his presidential obligations. Many have speculated this could take place during the inauguration ceremony itself, when Biden, by means of grave crimes, including sedition and treason, is given the opportunity to place his hand on the Bible and attempt to recite the oath of office and steal the power of the presidency. At that precise moment, he will have committed an act of sedition, and Trump, still at president, will have the authority under his emergency powers to apprehend Biden and any other suspects that aided him to get to this point. I have to be honest with you, I really don't know for certain what will happen tomorrow or how exactly it will transpire. All I have is the same knowledge you do, that 1. This election was stolen, covered up, And then people were censored and silenced for speaking out. 2. That massive evidence of all this has been flooding out and that Trump is fully aware of all of it and working alongside the best legal team in the country. 3. That if you look at what has been going on in the run-up to this inauguration, and connect the dots, these are extremely unusual circumstances, and everything seems to point to the possibility that something is going to go down. You do not need 30,000 National Guard troops in D.C. to defend a virtual inauguration, but you may need them to defend the city from a rioting left-wing army when Biden is arrested. Furthermore, if Trump were to make some type of emergency broadcast in the minutes after, obviously Washington, D.C. wouldn't be safe for him, even at the White House. Where better to make the announcement than a heavily guarded military facility? And where is he headed tomorrow? One of the most, if not the most heavily guarded military facilities in the country. During this past week, Trump had remained out of sight and silent, in what would make for a very anticlimactic end to his presidency. If you are to believe the mainstream media, he has been sulking and feeling isolated. However, aides close to the president insist that he has been working hard, from early in the morning until late at night, taking many phone calls and holding many meetings. We've seen allies enter the Oval Office with notes about martial law and bizarre statements from officials and allies that seem to allude to a second term. Take into account the fact that Trump still hasn't conceded, the army in D.C., the mounting of fraud evidence, the fact that he's going to the most guarded place in the U.S. on the morning of the inauguration, plus all the other tiny pieces of coincidence and gossip, and, honestly, I am still holding out for something happening at the final moment. I have always believed in President Trump, that he won this election and would come through for the American people and screw the cynics. I still do. I will be watching the Biden inauguration tomorrow and expect that something dramatic is going to take place on camera. What, how, when exactly, I don't know, but President Trump will not allow these people to get away with this. It's his duty to stop it. He has the evidence and he has the power. Keep the faith and keep believing in President Trump, folks. As he said, our wonderful journey has only just begun. Good luck, everyone. Colin.